welcome to another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk PBA. I'm CJ Hutter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Brandemar, the sergeant at arms of the PBA.
And today we're excited to have Anthony Cerullo and Allison Cerullo on with us. Anthony is a Suffolk County Police Officer, and Allison is his wife, a former police dispatcher. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So obviously, both of you have a history of serving the community and helping everybody within Suffolk County. So just tell us a little bit about each of your backgrounds before we get into talking about some of the stuff you're currently working on.
Sure. Yeah. At 18 years old, I started volunteering as an EMT for a little bit. That got me into wanting to become a police officer. So I joined the NYPD in 2012 and was fortunate enough to get into Suffolk County Police Department in 2016, where I spent majority of that time in the 5th Precinct. Eventually got into the MedCAT unit full time, and now I'm in aviation.
Awesome. So the MedCAT unit is a great unit. It's one of the units we've highlighted several times on the show. So, thank you for going through that training, because that's an invaluable service to this county that most places don't have that halo of protection around them that we have.
Yeah, it's a very unique thing. Actually, I had somebody reach out to me that I used to volunteer with that is in a department down south, asking about it because they want to form some type of similar program for their department as well. So, yeah, it's definitely unique. I think it's a huge benefit for the county, for all the residents of Suffolk County. We bring a unique angle to EMS and provide, some supportive services for local ambulance companies. And, sometimes these departments can't get out, in a quick manner. And we're there to kind of get that first, that first look, that first,
like hands-on medical, giving the medical that person may need.
If we have somebody that's bleeding out or some type of traumatic injury, we're there. Time is blood, time is brain. So the quicker we can get to certain things, the better it is for everybody.
Right, because you're already out on the road. Most of the services out here in Suffolk County are volunteer basis. So It's guys and girls that are doing a great service for the community as well, but they're responding from their house. They're not necessarily out on the road already equipped and ready to perform these kinds of actions that are needed.
Especially in violent situations too. You guys they can't necessarily go in yet.
Yeah, definitely unique in that aspect where we have body armor and we have our firearms. There's definitely certain situations you don't want local EMS getting into because of the safety factor of it. So, yeah, we definitely provide that extra layer of protection, definitely for the public and also our fellow officers.
So, and Allison, you've worked for the county in the past too, right? You worked as a police dispatcher.
Yeah, I was hired in February of 2016. I always knew that I wanted to be in law enforcement in some way. That was kind of my foot in the door, and ended up loving the job. Spent 6.5 years with Suffolk County PD, and then did a short time at Southampton Town PD, and before I became a mom. And now I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, that's great. Now, as a police dispatcher, what is it like hearing some of the dangerous situations we're running towards, knowing that your own husband's a cop?
Yeah, it definitely was a fine line of walking of our main priority as a dispatcher is to get these men and women home to their own families at the end of the day, right? Like that, our main priority is keeping you guys safe when you're running into the danger. But then on the flip side too, sometimes hearing you guys go into danger and not being able to physically be there to help you, the best we can do is just get you more backup. But that also makes it hard for us to listen to it. I remember there's been incidents that he's, rolling around with somebody or running into danger, and you just got to keep it going,
right?
Get the backup going and all that stuff. But our number one priority is safety to get everybody home at the end of the night.
You got to stay calm during those situations as well, because that's very important. Communication is huge during those situations, and it's got to be very difficult when you're not there present. But what you guys do is it's a thankless job. And
I really did love it, and I wish I could still do it. But for childcare purposes, being a stay-at-home mom is where I'm at now, but it is really a pertinent part of this job.
It is a pertinent part, and it's one of those aspects of law enforcement and public service that doesn't get the recognition it always deserves, right? So like in the police academy, one of the first things you're taught is that your radio and your communication, that's your lifeline, right? Because if we're running into a dangerous situation and we have to update our backup or update other responding officers of where the danger is, that's the communications is how we keep each other safe. And for you to be able to coordinate all that and kind of quarterback the whole response to the call. And, sometimes you'll help direct guys. Like, if somebody could come from the south side, somebody come from the north side, stuff like that is an invaluable service to maintaining officer safety and public safety.
Yeah. At certain times, I think for us as dispatchers, like you can be responsible for up to 30 people at a time, sometimes even more than that. And so we're coordinating where you go and what you do. And sometimes it's like, hey, we just need you guys to check in to make sure everybody's still safe doing whatever. But, if you guys are on a perimeter, we got to make sure we know where everybody is and that stuff. And dispatch really, really helps the day go on.
Tanner here from On Patrol with the Suffolk PBA. Just a reminder to all our viewers to like, subscribe, follow, and share our content across all platforms.
One of the main reasons we actually guys come on the show today is you've gotten very heavily involved with the Warrior Ranch Foundation. And we've had Larry Ortolani on in the past to talk about the Warrior Ranch Foundation and some of the services they provide. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your involvement with the Warrior Ranch?
Sure. I guess we could start with our son getting diagnosed. So that was a little bit of a crazy time. Allison was out of work after she had our son Luca, and she offered to babysit for a friend of hers who was born about a month prior, so about the same age. So figured it'd be an easy thing. And then after a couple of months, she started noticing differences in milestones and progression as they both got older, which raised a couple red flags. And, me being a guy, I'm like, he's a boy, like he's probably just delayed, whatever. But obviously she got to see it firsthand, because I, obviously would be at work all the time. And, alarm bells started ringing about that. And we were fortunate enough to get some really good doctors, that kind of sped up our whole diagnosis process. We went to a neurologist who saw some red flags. They wanted us to follow up with a ophthalmologist who basically gave us our diagnosis without giving us our diagnosis. He had what's called cherry red spots on his retina, which is an indication of some type of storage disorder. So when you do the quick Google search of it, there's a couple of different options that come up, but none of them are good. So we kind of had an idea where we're going. They sent us to Cohen's Children's for a full genetic workup, a CAT scan, all that stuff. They found that he did have white matter on his brain, and genetics came back within
1 week later. Just one part is that the neurologist wanted us to follow up with the ophthalmologist, and we were lucky enough to get an appointment the very next day.
Oh, wow.
So that was on a Friday, and then by Monday they sent us to Cohen's to admit us for the testing.
So we had an idea which direction we were going. A friend of ours was getting married down in Florida, and we were supposed to go on this trip. And, we spoke amongst ourselves because we had a feeling where the diagnosis was going, if we should still go on the trip and all this other stuff. And we ended up still going. We had a good time down there with everybody. And then a short time later, we get home, and then we got the diagnosis that he had what's called Sandhoff disease. It's very similar to a disease called Tay-Sachs. They basically work in the same way, where you're born without a certain gene or enzyme that breaks down waste product in the brain. So that waste product has time to build up. Tay-Sachs is bad. It's also a fatal disease. Sandhoff is it's pretty much the same disease, except a little bit more rapid. It's a shorter lifespan. So we got all this news. Obviously, our world's kind of going crazy, and we're really good friends with Damon Morrow. And Larry had reached out to Damon and said, "Hey, there's this place called the Warrior Ranch that could be beneficial for you guys to check out." And Allison had already heard about the Warrior Ranch. She grew up, riding horses and stuff. So it's something that was already on her radar. And we just kind of said, all right, I mean, can't hurt to go. Let's go see what this is about. And I think from that point forward, I
think we were sold on it from the very beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just such an incredible resource, especially for first responders and veterans. I mean, I didn't grow up with horses, so I don't know anything about it, but working with them and understanding how horses kind of tune in to you, and they really feed off of your heartbeat. They know if you're nervous. They can really sense a lot of those things, and it forces you to be in tune with yourself and kind of recalibrate, because obviously you don't want a horse, getting all nervous around you.
Right, it's a dangerous animal.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how we got involved, and we've been hooked ever since. And we really have to thank Larry for thinking about us in that situation.
Yeah, I will just point out that after that diagnosis day, right, like beforehand, when Ant was talking about the research and stuff, you do a quick Google search, all of them have life expectancies. So whether they were age 2 or age 12 or whatever they may be, like we knew we would be burying a child well before we ever died. And so we kept looking at it and we were like, oh, as long as it's not this one, like he'll be 10, like maybe he'll live till 10. And then this infantile Sandhoffs came up, and it said it was a 1 in a million chance of a diagnosis. And I was like, that can't be us. That's not going to be us. So as long as it's not Tay-Sachs, like we'll have 5, 7, 10 years with him, as long as it's not that. Like Sandhoffs was not even on our radar. And when they admitted us to Children's Hospital, on top of one of the cabinets was a geneticist had wrote out a piece of paper for the emergency room doctors and nurses with high suspicions of Tay-Sachs and why they were testing what they were doing.
Wow.
So that was like a little eye-opening for us, because I was just like, as long as it's not Tay-Sachs, like we'll be okay. Like Sandhoffs, I was like, not us, 1 in a million. Like why would we be 1 in a million people?
Right.
And then a week later they came back and they were like, actually he was at work and I logged on to the Zoom because I was like, it doesn't take a week, it takes longer. So let me just make sure that nobody actually pops onto this Zoom. He was working, and they said, yeah, your son has infantile Sandhoff disease. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Like that was not even supposed to be, it's not 1 in a million. How are we the 1 in a million? So I called him, and then he ended up coming home and gave him the bad news. And but in that time, like even now when you think back, it's like a blur. So the fact that Larry reached out to Damon to get us some sort of help in those first few days, like we would never have even thought to do that for ourselves. So like that's where that brotherhood really comes in for us.
What was it like to see that on a notepad, basically, before anybody even spoke to you about it?
Yeah, so it was crazy because I felt like if we had the information that we were going to get an actual diagnosis on that day, like I don't think he would have went to work, right? Because normally in the complex medical field, these diagnoses usually take months to get. And ours was roughly from the time that we saw the neurologist to the very next day for the ophthalmologist. We had an idea. We didn't even tell anybody what was going on. So we knew in the beginning of April that things were not looking good for us. And then we got the diagnosis 5 days before he turned 1. And we had already done so much research that I think it was just more or less like, of course we were sad, right? Mm-hmm. But it was more or less like, let's jump into go time. Like, what can we do to like make his life as comfortable and as healthy for as long as it could possibly be.
Right.
But it's like even still surreal to this day that we are that 1 in a million people. Actually, shortly after we were diagnosed, we went to a concert at MetLife Stadium, and we both looked at each other and we were like, look at all these people here. We need like 3 stadiums of this, and we're still those 1 in a million people out of that stadium size. So it's so surreal to like see.
Yeah, it's incredible. So once Larry and Damon reached out to you guys about the Warrior Ranch and, suggested having an experience there. Were you able to bring Luca with you?
Yeah, so the first one we went by ourselves. The first retreat, we went by ourselves and just experienced it for ourselves and learned all about the horses and how equine therapy can really play a part in just everyday life for whether it's child loss or just everyday stresses, the job, your family life, whatever it may be. And then we took Luca to just the three of us to the ranch. And he's actually the youngest participant at the ranch. And he was roughly 13 months old when we took him. And he loved it. He was smiling and petting the horses and stuff like that.
Yeah, we have a lot of good pictures from that day. We obviously, once we got the diagnosis, we took you're a parent.
Yeah.
You understand, you take lots of pictures of your kids. We got the diagnosis and we don't have a lot of time. So everything we did, we took as many pictures as we could.
Right.
And especially that day, we have tons of good pictures. And the part that we forgot to mention was Allison was pregnant with our second son when we got this diagnosis. And when we went to the ranch, the horses picked up on that as well. Actually, this one horse, Sully, which is,
he has a special place in our heart forever.
he's the best. And, he kind of picked up that she was pregnant,
He put his nose on my belly.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, it was definitely a good time. We have some pictures printed out at home, of him and Sully, and it was definitely special.
That's great. Allison, you kind of touched on it. You knew the clock was ticking, so you're trying to think everything you can as parents, how to make him as comfortable as possible in the time you have, but you also want to create memories like this, right? So, being able to have the Warrior Ranch there and have these memories and these photos, these videos, that it's got to be great to be able to have that time to look back on and remember, and maybe be able to show Leo's your youngest son, right? Show Leo, this is your brother Luca, right?
Yeah.
Be able to share those times with Leo as well.
Yep.
We would be remiss if we did not mention Danny from the Good Foundation, because him and that foundation was instrumental. They sent us to Disney, and that is probably one of our favorite memories that we have of him. I was 8 months pregnant. We were walking through the park.
And it was in the middle of summer. We had the option of going to Florida or California. And we're going to Disney in Florida is probably not going to be good. Luca was very sensitive to heat. So we're we probably have to go to California. And it was very last minute type of thing, because we weren't sure if we were going to go prior to her having Leo or after. And it actually worked out better that we went prior, because we didn't know how fast Luca would decline. So we went at the right time, and we made the most out of that trip.
Yeah, we were diagnosed the very, very end of April, 5 days before he turned 1. And we ended up going to Disney roughly a month later.
That's incredible.
And they definitely made the memories for us there.
I'm glad you brought up Danny and the Good Foundation, because Danny's one of those great guys on the shop that does a lot of good work for our members behind the scenes that a lot of people never know about. So, and we've had Danny on the show in the past too. And for you guys to be able to talk about your firsthand experience with the Good Foundation and how it did benefit you and create those memories at Disney with your child. That it's awesome to hear stories like that and to be able to attribute it to the people that are there, not always looking for the attention, because a lot of people don't know that trip even occurred.
Yeah. Honestly, financially, we would never have been able to afford to take Luca to Disney ever. And they came in, and every worry that we had, they took care of. They set up, Port Authority Police had a lineup for us when we got to the JFK.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, even now gives me goosebumps talking about what Danny did for us.
I can't say enough good things about him and the foundation. just incredible. And like you said, it's probably a lot of stuff that nobody really sees. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. But he also has a special place in our hearts.
Yeah. So, and Danny, he went through a hard time himself as a kid, and that was his motivation for starting the Good Foundation. So obviously it's always heartbreaking and hard to get through difficult times and difficult losses, but it is inspirational to see some sort of good come out of that in the end, and people to be inspired to help others who might end up being in similar situations, to make it as easy as possible, or as, make the best out of the time you at least have.
Right.
I think that's like partly why we do what we do now, like getting involved at Warrior Ranch, here coming on the podcast is like, for us to talk about our experience, all it takes is one person to speak about it before maybe other people become comfortable with either utilizing the services or just reaching out to somebody. And like losing a child is terrible. It's so terrible.
It's every parent's worst nightmare.
Right. But just because that happened to us doesn't mean that everyone else's bad things in their life aren't just as bad. Mm-hmm. So we are here, and now our purpose in life, this like silver lining of what happened to us, is if we can help one person, then it makes it worthwhile.
The grace you just said that with is really like striking. I feel like not a lot of people go through what you guys went through, and the fact that you could take a step back and have that mindset about it, it says a lot about you guys. It really does.
Thank you.
Yeah, it takes a lot of strength.
Yeah, obviously there's many different ways people can handle these situations, but my whole life I've always been the type of person to help other people, and I don't think that needs to change because of what we went through. And it was definitely a different experience being the one helped, because that to me was a little uncomfortable. After just the way I am, I always help people. Sometimes we get into little arguments about it because that's just how I am.
Right. It's in your nature.
Right. But it definitely was a little uncomfortable to even, ask for, Disney in California. Because in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, no, that's going to be an expensive trip. Like that's a burden for them. Like, just the way I was thinking about it. So it was, it's just, even
there was quite a few people who put together fundraisers for us, which we are so incredibly grateful for. Financial wise, the medical bills, we ended up paying a lot out of pocket for things that insurance may have covered, but it would have taken months for insurance to get them. Things that kept Luca comfortable. Obviously, everybody knows medical bills are outrageous when it comes to those things. Even still now, if we choose to have more children, we have to go through IVF, so also very expensive. And every time that somebody put together a fundraiser, we always felt like they did it because they wanted to. But in our hearts, we were just like, oh my God, it's so weird to be on the other end of it, because you always think like, oh, it won't be me, or that won't happen to us. And then we're like thrown into this like just whirlwind of life, and then it ends up being us that needs the help. Right.
And it's all unsolicited help, right? I mean, you guys weren't asking for any of the help, but just like Anthony touched on, he's always been the kind of guy that just wants to take action and help others. There's police officers all over the place that feel that same way. Firemen, right? EMS personnel that feel that way. So when we see one of our own, right, and a dispatcher, two of our own, going through a very difficult time like this, it is always great to see multiple organizations step up. I think, Fund the First is another group that did a big fundraiser, raised a lot of money.
Yep.
And, Rob Garland over at Fund the First, he's one of the first guys to always reach out to us whenever he hears a story of somebody, in need, going through a tough time. So I think it's all just part of that whole team. You're surrounded by people that just always want to try to help each other, basically.
Yeah. And like she touched on earlier, it just goes to show how strong the brotherhood really is. I mean, we're all there for each other. And to touch back on the Warrior Ranch, I mean, that's just another resource to just, another outlet to try and deal with whatever issues you might have, whether it was a bad call people went on or something, bad divorce or something going on in your personal life. It's just another outlet. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But we've taken a couple of our friends there, and they've all came back with the same responses. This place is incredible.
Just a quick message to our audience out there. Please remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe. It really helps our content reach more people, and it adds to our algorithm. Thank you. And it's a positive way to kind of cope with the stress you're going through, right? Because how often do you hear horror stories of somebody turning to alcohol instead, right?
Yeah.
Or turning to, some sort of abuse of their bodies, and they really become another burden to the people that love them. Right. Where this is a positive way to cope with that same stress. And like Allison already put it, it's a way to help other people that might be going through something similar, or even if it's different, but going through a hard time themselves later.
Right.
So I'll share just a small personal thing with you guys is that I never had a drinking problem, was never really a big drinker. From the time that Luca was diagnosed to 1 year later, I had a total of 3 drinks in that year's time. But I have stopped drinking since April of last year, only just because I feel like the pull is there. Like the desires, and it's a slippery slope, right? You can cheers because you had a sad day. You could cheers because you have a good day. And it's just that pull is there, that we already have enough trauma in our life. Why would I put my husband and our other son through something that's avoidable? And that's where things like the Warrior Ranch could come into play. And everybody has different ways of dealing with things.
Right.
But one of my favorite things about the ranch is that you can go to the ranch and you can talk as much or as little about why you're there. And you're just there to enjoy the day with like-minded people who are also there because just life is happening and they're there to help themselves. So you don't have to go there and say, oh, I'm here because X, Y, and Z. I don't even think for the first few times we had gone there, I don't think we ever said our kid is dying, so that's why we're here. But we have made friends there now that have become lifelong friends just based on the horses.
Right.
So
how much? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to add that they've been so good to us. They actually Eileen, the founder there, she planted a memorial tree for our son Luca there. So again, it's just another thing that just to bring it all together. It's just an incredible place. I mean, now we can go there every time and we have some type of memorial for my son, Luca. So
how much is going back to the Warrior Ranch after this whole situation? How much do you think that it has helped you guys? I mean, I feel like you guys went through the therapy aspect of it when you're going through a situation or even after the situation, but how much help is it to you guys that you're helping other people now? And how does that make you guys feel?
So Luca passed on October 23rd of 2024, and we were given to PBA members. They were dedicated to us for a week and a half or so to drive us to the funeral home, to plan all that stuff, get us food, pretty much anything we needed. They were given to us to get that done. And they drove us to a retreat 3 days later. And every single time we've gone there afterwards, maybe there's, obviously anniversaries are hard. The 6 month, 6 months is hard. 1 year is hard, but we've also been raising an infant in the time too. Leo was 3 months old when his older brother passed away. So sometimes there's disconnects, right? That happens in every marriage and anyone who has kids and anyone who just has everyday stresses. After we go there together, it's just a way to bring us back closer together, clear our minds and say, oh yeah, okay, we got this, And so it's been instrumental, I think, in our healing journey.
Yeah. I mean, I've even had people that are veterans that are outside law enforcement reach out, say, hey, I have a friend who's a veteran that's having a hard time related to their service. do you think you can give me a contact for the Warrior Ranch? So like even outside the police department, like it's just a place that it's getting a very good reputation. Obviously, like the word's getting out that this place exists with advertising and stuff. It's a good resource, and it obviously feels good to help people. I mean, otherwise, why do people do it, right?
Right. So Warrior Ranch is building a great reputation, and it is starting to get more and more attention. They actually just released recently released a documentary about Warrior Ranch, right? So were you guys involved at all during that time period? Was there excitement around the ranch when they were recording it? Was there, what was it like when it finally got released and people were able to watch it?
So I wasn't at the release. I don't think we were really around when they were doing a whole lot of that documentation.
All that filming kind of focuses more about veterans and military service than law enforcement. But I actually sat with the PBA table for the viewing of that out in Riverhead. So I hope now soon, being that the word is getting out, I hope that they can also make a documentary about law enforcement services if anyone is like willing to share their story on what it takes and what everybody goes through.
Right. Now, you guys live in, it's basically like small town USA, right? I remember during this time period when all the planning for the funeral and wake services was going on, and Damon was with you guys for basically every day for a week and a half, right? Damon had mentioned to me at one point that he was very impressed with how your town kind of rallied around you and your story as well. Can you just touch a little bit on like how the town came together for you too?
Yeah. So I'm a volunteer with my local fire department, and I was a brand new member. I only had just been there for about a year, and when word broke out, obviously I'm not focused on any of my volunteer firefighter duties, and they kind of went above and beyond for somebody that was still technically a probationary member at that point, to help support us, whether it was any type of donation. They offered to, pay for certain medical things as well. I mean, they really kind of stepped up, and we weren't born or raised where we currently live. So we're kind of like, I call us implants because we're just from other communities, but they really were the gateway to the community, really kind of rallying around us. I've been doing EMS for the last 18 years or so, and it's a big but small community, so you kind of know people planted everywhere. So familiar with the chiefs of some of the local ambulance companies as well, and everyone just kind of really stepped it up for us, and we couldn't be more appreciative. It was just amazing. It's hard to even describe the amount of support that we had throughout that time.
I also just wanted to mention Promise of Hope, because I know they were here recently also. But we were one of their families that they took care of. And Luca, we met them at the wake, which honestly, if we're being honest, the wake and the funeral is mostly a blur to us. We know that there was roughly 700 people, give or take, that came to see us. And when we met them, we were just so blown away that we were graced with being one of their families that they take care of. Obviously, we didn't know about it beforehand. And when we met them, we were just speechless, really, on what they did for us.
So Mike Van Denberg's a really good friend of ours. Lisa Tizzolo, Promise of Hope Foundation is a great foundation. But you just mentioned you didn't even know you were going to be one of those families until they showed up to the wake.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I always thought there was a little bit of pre-planning, maybe 24 hours notice, let me know where to go with a check kind of thing. but for you to not even know until you were at the wake, that's incredible.
With Damon and Dennis took us around for that week and a half, and when we have clear minds now and look back at it, there's so many things that either the police department, the fire department, like local people took care of for us, that like what we did is we went to the funeral home, we picked out what we wanted, we got driven around for a week, food was donated, like that was the only way we survived for that time, was for them. And maybe they told us that one day at the wake, the day that we met them, I think, is when they told us that they were going to take care of the funeral services for Luca.
Wow, that's incredible. So obviously there's a financial impact there, right? I mean, wakes, funerals, they are not cheap events. Mm-hmm. So obviously that's a nice burden to be taken off your shoulders. But to be able to have that kind of burden taken off your shoulders by somebody you hadn't previously met with mm-hmm. Promise of Hope, to me, it speaks a lot to what their character and mission is, because they weren't looking for the attention prior. They kind of just showed up and did it. Yeah, somebody from here, from the PBA, must reach out to them. However they got notified of what was going on, we have no idea. But mm-hmm. They really are selfless people who just give back, and it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. So, Warrior Ranch is great. You guys go through a lot of the therapy sessions yourself, help other people through some of the therapy sessions. What was it like when you actually had to go back to work and start helping people on doing your regular job as a police officer? Yeah.
Obviously it's hard to describe. I mean, I try to. I mean, it's something that's just so big. You just try to, I don't want to say compartmentalize, but like being in aviation, it's a pretty dangerous place to be. So I need to be focused in what I do, and I just need to, be on point. I mean, we're talking about the safety of us and the safety of everyone on the ground when it comes to certain things. So going back to work, I grew up loving aviation. I've always wanted to be a pilot. I spent the money and got my pilot's license, and it's just, to me, going to work at a place that I love and something I love doing was part therapy for me. Mm-hmm. I can't say that's going to be the case for everybody, but for me, it wasn't such a difficult thing to go and do because it's something that I just love doing. Obviously, there are times that memories come up on your phone or whatever the case is. You kind of work through it, but every once in a while we'd have the schedules line up and we'd go to retreat, and it's like you kind of reset, and that was pretty much my experience. I mean, I can't speak for hers because she's still a stay-at-home mom.
Well, what was it like seeing him going back to work and now being home with Leo? I was actually just going to touch on one part is sometimes we'd go to retreats before he works at 3 to 11, and then we take separate cars, and he stays for the majority of it and then goes to work. So definitely where we can fit it in is huge for us. But one other thing I really wanted to touch on for him and the job is that the day that we found out about Luca's diagnosis, a few months prior, he had saved a baby mm-hmm. and who was overdosing. And so that came out on a New York Post article the same day that we found out about Luca's diagnosis. That's incredible timing. Which a lot of people don't know. Obviously, it was not public knowledge to the world yet about Luca. So kind of a bittersweet thing where we are completely devastated that our son we're going to outlive our son. And people are calling and texting, hey, congratulations, that's so great. Like, we saw what you did. Like, what a beautiful thing. And like, how bittersweet is you could save other people's babies, but you can't save your own at the end of the day. So like, that was a wild time for me to watch
my husband go through it, but I would also imagine like just such a difference of emotions that he was feeling, like seeing these text messages and these calls come in, like we're crying because we're going to bury our child, but then like people are calling and like, hey, this is so great. So that was a really hard time.
Yeah, that save you made, the 11-month-old baby overdosing on fentanyl. You were a MedCAT guy out on the road, and I think an ambulance actually picked the baby up and was starting to go to the hospital already. And you basically pulled over the ambulance to do your MedCAT stuff, and you saved this baby's life right on that ambulance.
Yeah. So the call came in. I wasn't too far from it. So obviously, the way that comes over the radio, that's something I'm going to try and get to as quickly as possible. By the time I got to the area, the ambulance had already started heading to the hospital. And the GPS in that area was kind of wonky, so it wasn't reloading. I couldn't really figure out where I was, and eventually found the ambulance. I came over the radio and said, "Hey, I'm behind the ambulance. If they need anybody else, I'm here." And at that point, they pulled over. I pulled into a parking lot. I jumped right in, and we kept going. And the thing with that call was other people on the MedCAT team in the previous months have stated how many infants they've had with some type of overdose. So in the back of my head, I'm thinking, all right, this child isn't breathing. Let's check its pupils. Pupils are pinpoint. All right, indicating a possible opiate overdose. So the EMS crew was all pretty much on the same page, and I just wanted to make sure I got the dosing right for an infant Narcan administration, and we administered it, and within maybe 5 or 10 minutes, we pulled up to the hospital, and at that time, the baby started crying, and it was surreal in that moment. Obviously, we didn't have our son's diagnosis at that time. It was just a crazy thing to go through. Very emotional, obviously, for even the other paramedic from the ambulance I was working with, because she also had a grandchild around the same age. So it's just a crazy situation. And then, and then a couple months later that came out. It just broke out in the news, and the day that story broke. It was the same day we got our diagnosis. It's just wild timing. And I always say it's like, maybe it was meant to be that way. Not that it softens the blow of the diagnosis, but like you get some positive in there with the negative. It maybe made it a little easier. I don't really know, but there had to be a reason why that happened at the same time.
I could definitely see that logic. Like it becomes a reminder of what you are and what you've done good in this world, right? And so I could see the logic of how maybe it was just meant to be, to maybe, like you put it, soften the blow a little bit that day. I've seen the body camera footage of that, or it might be footage from inside the ambulance. I've seen this, so we're definitely going to insert the footage into this episode as we're talking about it, because that's one of those heroic actions that, even though it already did get a lot of press, it's one of those things that people shouldn't forget about. Like this, because now they're getting to know you as a person, a man, a family, stuff that you've gone through. And then here you are at the same time.
A near fatal dose of fentanyl in Suffolk County ingested by a baby. There is new video released just today showing first responders saving that infant's life after it was unresponsive for about half an hour. A sobering look at how much damage even the tiniest bit of fentanyl can do. Here's investigative reporter Kristen Thorne.
The 11-month-old stopped breathing in the ambulance. He was unresponsive for
a half hour at least, 40 minutes. Do you think it's drugs?
But first responders didn't give up.
There we go.
Yes. It was Narcan that brought the child back to life. He was suffering from fentanyl poisoning. The child's mother had called 911 because the child was turning blue, couldn't breathe, and his eyes were rolling back in his head. This happened in January in Lake Grove. It was the same month that 14-month-old Joseph Adonis died of a drug overdose in Holbrook. His parents have been charged with manslaughter. The Suffolk County District Attorney has had enough.
Fentanyl is flooding our communities to the point where even now babies and toddlers are being poisoned, regularly suffering from the effects of opioid overdoses.
DA Ray Tierney says this boy's father was arrested for endangering the welfare of a child, but was released immediately without bail.
Possessing deadly drugs around a baby and giving a baby access to those deadly drugs in New York State is not enough to ask for bail. Enough is enough. We've talked about this endlessly, yet our legislature refuses to act.
Police say they did arrest the man who sold the child's father the drugs. Kristen Thorne, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
It is so disturbing, this kind of story.
Saving an 11-month-old life.
Right.
So it's very inspirational to be able to pull yourself together and get stuff like this to happen for other people. So one of the things I want to make sure we touch on is there is an upcoming fundraiser for the Warrior Ranch at Pickleball Heaven. Right. So tell us a little bit about what you guys expect from this fundraiser, what you're hoping to see, what you're hoping to accomplish.
I think at the end of the day, right, so just a little quick side story. I've gone with the Warrior Ranch to the 106 out in West Hampton for their family day. I've gone to Nassau County's PD Wellness Day. I've taken our story with the Warrior Ranch to all these other places to try to show what the Warrior Ranch does for us, right? So the point of this, one point of this episode is to hopefully get other people on our job to utilize the Warrior Ranch, because it literally has changed our life, saved our lives, saved our marriage, they've done so much for us, even though our marriage was never in jeopardy, our thing, just the way the world is happening.
Right. You never know how it could spiral after going through something like that.
We've met so many friends. We've bought people there. So I'm hoping that for this fundraiser that people really come out to support the Warrior Ranch, whether they choose to attend the ranch or not. But this is an instrumental part of this job that, this job is pretty good with helping others who are going through difficult times. So I hope that everybody else on the job can do the same.
Yeah, and the services they provide are free of charge to the attendees. So, taking care of horses is not cheap.
Right.
Any little thing, donation or fundraiser, anything is obviously extremely helpful for them. We've throughout the time have requested, for certain things that people donate on our behalf to the Warrior Ranch. And, obviously, like we've touched on pretty much all episode, it's such an invaluable resource. And we definitely, I guess, a case study of how beneficial it actually is. It's not for everybody. If it's not your thing, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work. But I would say just experience the ranch once, make a decision for yourself, going into it with an open mind, and you might be surprised.
It's very unique. It's got to be a unique experience because it's so different from any other type of therapy. Like most therapies are you're just sitting there talking to somebody, and not a lot of people like to talk to like a one-on-one or even in a group about their own personal issues.
Yeah. So, I was just going to say, you're really talking to yourself while you're there. It's like I said, the horses there, they kind of get in tune with you. They kind of feel your heart rate, and they know when you're anxious and nervous and afraid. So it forces you to kind of be in tune and talk to yourself. All right, calm down, take a breath. Let's not excite this, this really heavy animal. It's like, it just kind of forces you to just get present. I
love how you put that. Like you're talking to yourself. Right. Most people, when you're dealing with an issue, you're trying to project different things and you don't want to deal with the issue internally. So I love how you put that.
Yeah.
So we've done two different types. We've gone to Warrior Ranch. We've also gone and sat and talked with somebody. Like he said, everybody has their own way of coping with things. So one way may be more beneficial to others. But like you said, most people don't love to sit down and talk one-on-one with somebody about these problems. And like, I know for myself at first, I'm skeptical of talk therapy, right? This person doesn't know me. How am I supposed to, in an hour or so, how are they supposed to give me any sort of feedback? But in one way, it's also like a neutral party who can give you options of A, B, and C that may be helpful to your situation. But the ranch is like, I remember so clearly this one time that Anthony was working with Sully at the ranch, and he was trying to get him to do something, and it just wasn't happening. And he got a reminder to like be clear about your intentions. And instantly, in just the blink of an eye, he just took a breath, decided what needed to happen, and then the very next time it happened. So just the connection between the horse and person, like once you clear your mind of the things that are happening in your life, that connection is really special. And just one other thing is that they taught us that horses, their magnetic field is about 5 times the size of ours. So they're herd animals, and then you become their herd when you're working with them. So horses will naturally raise their heart rate to match yours, and then slowly work to bring your heart rate down. So if you're anxious, you're nervous, anything like that, the horses actually do the work for you.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, how there's like real biological science behind this, right? That's incredible. Now, is the magnetic field, does that have anything to do with just the size of the horse?
Yeah, their heart is roughly 5 times the size of ours, which makes the magnetic field how it like hooks up in the herd. So it's like when they're out in the wild, they always have like one horse that's like mostly in charge, that's like watching for prey and for danger. And then so when that one horse's heart rate goes up, then the herd go up too, and that's where that fight or flight sort of comes in.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny how there's that real biology behind it, and it's not just a mental thing that you're thinking this might be happening, right? Because it actually is physically happening.
Yep.
Yeah, that's incredible. So with the fundraiser on April 26th, the PBA is going to be a part of that. The podcast is going to be a part of that. We actually plan on recording from the event that day. So I would love to have you guys back on too, talk a little bit about the event as it's going on. Hopefully we can get Eileen on, talk about the Warrior Ranch. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people there that we could put together a little on-location episode to bring even more attention to the Warrior Ranch and the good work that they're doing over there.
Yeah, Juliet Hackett's another one. I'm sure she'll be there, and she definitely has all the information about the horses and how the equine therapy really is like scientifically proven to be helpful. So I bet they'll definitely be there and willing to talk.
Right, because I think part of the value of a fundraiser like that at Pickleball Heaven is it's not just the money that they're going to raise, which is in need, right? Because it's like you said, it's not cheap to take care of these horses and maintain the facilities, but it's to bring the awareness to the service that is available to the people out there that might be looking for something, who maybe they've tried a one-on-one talk therapy in the past and it wasn't effective for them, right? Everybody's a little bit different. So maybe this becomes a light bulb moment for somebody who's been looking for something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one other thing that just popped in my head about the ranch, and again, why it's so special to us. After our son passed away, we decided we were going to have him cremated. So we have to pick urns. So, they gave us a little pamphlet at the funeral home of generic little urns. And I was like, let me check online and see what else that we can look at. And I sent her one, and it had an eagle on it. So
we were deciding between two.
Yeah,
that one and one other.
Between two. One had an eagle on it, and we're like, let's table it, and we'll revisit this in a couple of days. So we go to the ranch a couple of days after Luca passed, and we look up, and I see what looks like an eagle flying over, and I turn to her. I'm like, I think that's the sign there. So again, like another connection to the ranch, and we ended up choosing that urn for our son, and it just kind of, brings it again full circle for us. It's just how important this place is to us.
It's incredible. It's nice to always have those memories, those little reminders. I haven't lost a child, but I've lost people that are dear to me, right? So it's nice to get those little reminders now and then, like, oh, there's Pop looking down on me. There's Nanny looking down on me, right? It's nice to have those moments.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and everyone grieves differently, and
right.
And grief is grief. It's pretty much, you lose a child, obviously it's the worst, but if you lose your mother or a grandparent, I mean, grief is grief, and everyone handles that differently. Right.
Guys, I can't thank you enough for coming on this show today and talking about your experiences, the tough time you went through, what you've done to cope with it and hope to help other people going forward. I think it's incredibly brave of you to be able to be so open about your experience. And you're two people I look up to. I think it's very impressive to see how you've handled yourselves through this situation that you've been in. So thank you for coming on. It means a lot to us.
I appreciate it.
I just want
for having us.
Echo what he said too. It really is. Your story is incredible, and I hope our audience gets to appreciate what you guys have dealt with and your message too. So thank you.
And also, if anybody, like he said before, we've taken friends to the Warrior Ranch. So if anybody wants to go with a friend, a familiar face, we're always up to available. Take people and make it happen for everybody else.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.